Ladies and gentlemen, we are somberly joining you this evening to mourn the passing of Era One. They had a good run when season 40 was announced. We saw the names, we saw the legends, the OGs, that we wanted them to come back. But quickly, it just turned into how I watch them every time when my dad says that he's going to play pickup basketball. I'm just worried for no major injury. And that's just what happened with Era One. And as Andy Bernard said at the end of The Office, I wish you knew you were living in the good old days when you were in the good old days. I believe that's what all of Era One was having to think as they took their plane home on the ride back from Vietnam. Welcome to Reality After Show, coverage of the challenge, episode 8. I'm your host, Dan Montchal, joined as always, Alex Trias, Paulie Calafiore. Paulie, Alex, I feel like it's said too often, but I think this is where we can really ask the question, is it the end of an era?
You know, I would say yes. It is the end of an era. Um, doesn't mean that the era can't still be sprinkled in here and there. We love a good sprinkle. But like listen, my parents are getting up there in age. Conversations are going to have to start being had between me, my brother, and sister as when's it time to put them in a home? It's not now. They still got some good years left in them. They can still take care of themselves. They're still young and vibrant. They keep themselves in shape. Um, but can my dad still coach soccer the way he once did when I was just a young boy? Can my mother still chase me down with that wooden spoon the way that she once did as a young lass, a young maiden? And the answer is no. She can no longer keep up trying to catch me with that wooden spoon. My dad, he doesn't want to be coaching young kids anymore. And I think it's time, like I've been saying for Era One, in large part, to live on All Stars and only All Stars. I think I even think to take it one step further and just call it the Challenge OGs. You know what I mean? Just call it like the Challenge OGs. Or just, send them back to real world and just let them be in a house together because they're entertaining. I love watching them. I love seeing them interact. I love their confessionals. Um, but other than Rachel, and it's not to say they didn't put up a good fight, right? Derek, absolute animal. Hats off to him. Class act. The most heart. But everybody's got to start thinking about their long term health here and like where they stand with it, you know? And there's no shame in that. I mean, Rachel has really been the only one that came in this season with a completely different mindset, with something to prove, with a chip on her shoulder, like ready for war. I mean, she's terrifying. I think everybody else, they already lost before the game even started. Like, I think they lost in their minds. Like, the second that they entered that house and they were like, oh, wow, this is what the flagship's like. This isn't All Stars. This isn't a vacation. As soon as that first daily hit and they were like, oh, we can't just breeze through this. Oh, our politics really don't matter. Oh, we are the weakest team, so we literally cannot leverage anything to work with anybody here. You know what I mean? Like, I think it just goes to show that, like, there is a method to the madness when there are OGs on the season of like keep them all the way to the end because, you know, I guess they can't hurt you anymore.
Yeah, my picture isn't doing great, folks, but my audio is doing perfectly fine. Rachel, I think it's very fitting that this was the episode, like the theme of the episode. They love doing their their movie collabs with Gladiator because, like, you finish the episode with her literally in that position. She's in this position where it's her against the world. And I think like this episode actually highlighted what is to come with her. Like, I think she's actually in a very good spot despite being the lone person left on her entire era for other people, I fully agree, Polly. Like, there's certain things and certain decision making. If we want to start this conversation tonight with Era 1 in general, I still want to go back to like 2 weeks ago when Darrell volunteered. Derek should have always volunteered, because I was talking with Dan offline while the episode was going on. I gave Dan the pitch that I think ever since it became just Derek and Rachel, Derek was always thinking that he was going to go into elimination. He was ready to go home because it meant that Rachel could potentially succeed by him going home, because he's literally playing with one leg. Look, we all can't be Jordan. We all can't be Jordan, who goes off of a plane, fractures his leg, and goes on to run multiple miles and win a final. I think at certain points, production should have gotten in line here and took the player's decision out of their hands. And I think they should have taken Derek out, because you saw him during that daily today. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't do anything if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And this elimination, he only has a shot because they decided to make the cage like a 4x4 foot cage. Like, obviously you're going to get some hits because the dude's an animal end of the day, and if he doesn't have to run, he's going to make contact. But you know who could have won this faster? Darrell, the boxer. Like, you don't know what the elimination is going to be, but you know that Darrell's at least back was getting healthy again and had 2 good legs.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but I think this is one of those things where you're looking at it and it's like, man, Darrell really could have been there. And, Era 1, even though they were, dead humans standing, going into next week, maybe you have both of your players and maybe they're just there to kind of weaken whatever teams. I mean, this had the possibility of taking out a really strong player on Era 3, and maybe Darrell could have did it. Who knows? I mean, when it comes to Rachel, it's almost like she has a huge advantage because she has now been down there 3 times.
Twice.
Twice now.
Okay. She's been down there twice and she wins twice. There's something about going down into eliminations and kind of winning. You start to get this confidence about yourself. And when you really look at the girls left, there are a lot of strong girls left, but how many of them have actually been down in the sand and been getting their reps in? Rachel's the only one that's been getting their reps in. So I would argue that it would be very hard to beat Rachel. Like, she's not in that checked out mindset. She's not in that, oh my God, feel sorry for us, we're doing this. I mean, she just literally yelled at her team last week, being like, hey, I'm sick and tired of us like looking for breaks and us talking about ourselves like we're weak. Like, we're not weak. Like, she's locked in. She's locked in on another level that I think most people just aren't locked in. And you can see it. You see it in her eyes. You see it in her face. You see it in her delivery on when she says what she's going to do. You know what I mean? Like, she's just speaking from such a elevated place of confidence that she's almost in like a Zen flow.
Well, and you can also find a way to use her that's going to benefit your game. I mean, Paul, if you look at World of Worlds 2, you and Kara, you weren't working with Zach. But once he really had no options to go, you kept him around because you knew he was beneficial to your end goal of trying to win. And obviously, this isn't going to be teams all the way to the end. We're going to move to an individual portion. But for a while, you can use her as she has nowhere else to go. So if I have her loyalty, I could be her number 1 and she's my number 3 or 4. But she can help me progress further along in the game.
100%. This is eventually going to go down to individual. And Rachel, with the way that she's, performing, like, if she is unlocked, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to keep dailies out of her hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because Zach mentioned it on one of the clips that they put out. There are dailies where it benefits having less people in it. And like now she also has the freedom of, I don't have to be worried about anyone else. I just have to be worried about me, myself, and I. What can I do? I think I'm in the best shape of my life. You're now going to get some of these endurance style like dailies coming up. Like she can put that to the test. And if it's like time based or average based, like if it's just her, she could sneak out a win or at least not come in last. And at a certain point, if you don't come in last, like how are they really going to do an elimination? Like, do the guys think that if they throw in arrow one, that the guy is automatically safe? Like, is what happens with the elimination styles there? Like, there's questions out there now that I think people are now going to try to capitalize on, similar to what happened with the results tonight, where we see people volunteer. And I think a lot of these people volunteered because they thought by the time it got to Era 1, TJ was going to say, like, oh, I was just playing. This doesn't matter. The game's changing. Like, don't worry
I
about
think
it.
he still may do that, right before the next daily starts. Like, we're not taking that off of the table, right? Because,
Yeah.
like, I've been thinking about this. It really makes no sense to have them play as errors again now that Rachel's the only one down, because it would really throw off the format, like you mentioned, Alex, where let's say she does come in last place. Who's the guy that's going in? How is that going to work? I don't know if they have that figured out. Maybe they do have that figured out, and we'll see next week. But I can see them showing up to the daily and TJ being like, all right, everybody who's a target, drop your, drop the bans. You're no longer competing as eras anymore. You'll be competing as individuals. And, it'll kind of turn into basically like a true it's not the dual format, but which format is it where last place automatically goes in and then first place gets to pick who they go against? Which season did we see that on?
I mean, you'd see that in like the rival seasons where whoever was last was going in, and then there was a vote on who else was going in, which you could absolutely do that, where whoever comes last goes in, and then whoever wins, they pick between maybe just who the targets are. So that way, if you're going to keep the targets in, you'd still say, well, you can pick either these four women, or sorry, these three women, no, four women, three guys, or it could be right, and you just get rid of it entirely.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the targets may not be a thing, or it may just be a thing where every single time you show up to a daily, last place automatically goes in. Winners choose who they go against, and the game completely gets changed on its head. I mean, there's so many different ways that it could be. I just can't see it being another team daily. Because, like, what are you going to do with Rachel there? I mean, like, so Rachel theoretically would automatically be going in, right? Because if it is a team thing, like there's only so much they can kind of curve the daily, right? All the other
Right.
teams have at least 5 players,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like every other era has at least 5 players, and it's just her. Like I could see if it was like there was 3 of them and all the other eras had like 5 people, then they'd be like, all right, 2 people from each era, you're going to sit out, or like they're just going to, play it as is. But 5-1 is a very steep number to try and like curve in order to give Rachel any chance of potentially winning against teams.
Well, and especially you need to find some way to have an equalizer of some sorts. Because if you look at the daily tonight, the Gladiator one, Era 1, Rachel and Derek, they were screwed from the very beginning because it became not how long you stay on or how quickly someone else gets knocked off, just who has more people left standing. Well, their max was 2, and everyone else had more than 2 people stand on.
That's
So
what
they
I'm
were screwed
saying.
before it even started.
Yeah. Oh man. It was, yeah,
Yeah.
that daily it was tough to watch. Especially like knowing that Derek had a knee injury, and he's just kind of like hopping around. Like, I almost wonder how messed up his knee got from, last week to even this week, and doing that daily and even having that elimination. I mean, his knee's got to be absolutely brutalized. I was I was a little shocked to see. Tori absolutely pancake Cara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
I mean, like, listen, I rate Tori. Like, trust me, I
Mm-hmm.
give her
Yeah.
flowers.
You had her on the Mount Rushmore.
I put her on the Mount Rushmore for girls. I just was not expecting to see an absolute flattening like that. Like, I was kind of blown away, and it was kind of like, hey, Laurel, help. And I was like, kind of sitting there, like, when did Tori get like this? Like, I knew she's strong and she's good, but I was almost like, when did it equal out like that much? You know what I mean? And was there a back and forth? I'm curious to know, like, was there a back and forth? Because I
I'm
can't
sure there
imagine it was
was.
that, I can't imagine it was that one sided. Like, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, they had to show everyone in their proper light, their faves. But yeah, let's talk about the challenge or the daily. I like granted you knew who was losing immediately, but I love a good headbanger like this. It's such a shame that my camera's not working because I could go into my full Corey troll bit because the exact thing I did last week on the pod is what he did in his confessional. Dude comes in, banging his chest, going, "Yeah, as a competitor, as a former football player, it's like as an athlete, this is my element. This is what we come here for, folks. Like I'm showing mercy to people. It's like and him showing mercy is like I'm gonna bash you straight in the head, but
Dude, him showing mercy on Derek was hilarious. It's like, I showed you mercy, and they had just the clips of him clobbering Derek on his one leg, and I was like, that's mercy. Like, what would not be mercy? I wish they just
Sparta
gave him
kicking him.
like I wish they gave him like smaller shields,
yeah.
and like let him just kind of like shoulder to shoulder and like kind of wrestle around a little bit. Like, I almost feel like those big shields were more of like an injury risk to people's faces and wrists.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, I was
you
trying to
needed
debate that because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why aren't they just using like like a good arm pad, like the forearm pads that they'll put like for football practices, like a little smaller than what they gave, but like a little more firm.
Yeah,
And
just
I'm
let them
wondering
beat
if
the
they were
hell out of
like,
each other.
I wonder if they were just like, well, these are so flimsy that the impact of the shield won't cause like a concussion.
I'm
You
pretty
going
sure
to the
Josh and I
ground
got
can.
sliced.
Yeah. This wasn't even the first time that they used a challenge like this. So they did this back in Cutthroat where they had the riot shields. So just
Yeah.
use those or find a way to make the platform that they're on smaller. Because I imagine in their heads they thought more people were going to go off the edge and we weren't going to have this giant group at the end. And so they definitely miscalculated something there where I don't think that was the outcome they thought was going to happen.
Wait, they miscalculated a bunch of people who are left in the game that all they do is try to strategize, well, how can we keep a majority and then keep a lot of us safe?
Dude,
And they weren't.
they tried to strike a deal.
Like, I'm all for striking a public deal, but also if you're Theo and you're trying to be a man of your word to the man on one leg who's going into elimination, like, I'm sorry, you make a new deal on the
No,
spot.
props to Theo. No, I mean, but like, props to Theo. Like, Theo was sitting there, he goes, nah, no deal. I was like,
Yeah, no, I respect the hell out of him just going no deal and then just taking a full blindside shot from Corey just because
But,
Corey's
like-
just like, okay, fine.
but like, this just goes to show you, like, how not smart Theo is, because like, you made a deal with somebody who's already going in. Like, we already established they were going in regardless. You know what I mean? Like, the only way they weren't going in is if like one era completely like was decimated. But even then, like, that would be hard to do. So it's like, you know, right there, I mean, he just showed his cards a little bit. I think the real reason why he didn't make the deal is because he was never going to put in era 2.
No, he was
Like,
he
that
was
was never gonna
never
happen.
going to. He was never going to put Kara down there Like we know all the stuff that happened post you going out. Him and Kara essentially saying that they would look out for each other, which would have made it more interesting if Era 2 could have pulled out that win, just to see that dynamic and like that turnaround. Because they tried to use that storyline of like, well, Avery stalemated, so now it's Derek's turn to do it. I'm like, well, Derek's not in the power position. Like that's different. That's different standing on your morals there.
It would have been interesting seeing those two in the power position, seeing who would have held out. Yeah, who would have caved? It's like would Kara have held out for Theo, and would Derek have held out for Avery?
I think Derek would have folded, heart to heart.
Probably.
It's Jonny Fairplay, reality TV icon, Survivor Hall of Famer, and I'm talking today about Work Money. Work Money is a non-profit organization that focuses on lowering costs and raising incomes for all Americans to make American life more affordable and American families more economically secure. They provide products, services, perks, benefits, tips, and tools to help members improve their financial lives. It's time to level up and make more money in this economy. We're talking getting rich. Now, this sweepstakes is giving away $50,000. You can use this to pay your rent, your mortgage. Imagine what you can do with all the money that you'll save. Now, this is put on by Work Money, and this site has all these sick benefits, and it's free. Go sign up right now and get more rich. Now, listen, you can change your life. Now, what would you do if you didn't have to pay your rent or mortgage for a year? Listen. Sign up right now for free. Link is available right here in the show notes. Check them out. Personally, I'd get more pinball machines. I'm Jonny Fairplay. I wouldn't lie about that. It's Work Money. More money.
It's just funny because as we're going into the daily, we see confessionals going back and forth, and it seems pretty obvious that Era 2 and Era 3, they're going to be working together on this challenge. To everyone except for Johnny Bananas, Mr. Propaganda Machine himself, that always just likes to tell the story that his back's against the wall. He, has no friends in this game, and he's just a one-man crew. And it's like, Johnny, that's not like you're protected from all sides here. Like Era 2, he's not going in regardless. So Era 2's probably fine, but Era 3, probably not going in. Era 4 with Jenny there, we saw what she did last time. He's not going in, even if he would have been an option. So him just being the only one not telling it how it is that Era 2 and 3 were working together, I was just like, man, this man works harder. Maybe not always smarter.
Dude, the devil works hard, but Johnny Bananas propaganda works harder, man. That guy will die. I think the phrase "deny till you die." I think if you turn to the Urban Dictionary and pulled up where that phrase originated from, I think a picture of Johnny Bananas' face would be there, because this man could be caught dead to rights in a lie, and he's still going with his story. It is an unbelievable thing to witness.
No, it's wild, but there's some things he does tell the truth on. Like, if we remember. And like you were on his pod, you talked about the hall brawl, and his stance has always been, if I was ever put into a hall brawl, especially against a bigger opponent, the two things I'm doing is hitting the bell for them, or I'm running around the hall. In this challenge, which is a physical elimination, he's the first one out, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, at first I was just gonna be like make an old joke here, and I'll be like, time's coming for him. But then I was like, I'm pretty sure he was just waiting for someone to get him close to that end zone so that he could just walk into the water himself.
No, I think it was just waiting for somebody to be close to the edge so he could, run into him and kind of fly off. Like, oh man, I didn't put my balance.
But like, I also don't think he's like upset if he goes out from that strategy.
Oh, no,
like,
absolutely not. He's not. There will come a time where it catches up to all of us, and where you're going to be sitting there being like, this is not worth getting hurt. And in his scenario, it's like, yeah, it's not worth him getting hurt. Now that's a conversation for another day of What kind of people do you want there? The people who are going to kind of be like, I don't want to get hurt, let me get out of here. Or the people that are going to kind of like, give the people what they want. Like how Corey and Derek did.
I was going to say.
He was also, he was never going to try that hard simply because the two targets were Kara and Derek.
Oh,
so
for sure.
He didn't care if Era 2 won or not.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly. But I think as long as he's safe, he really doesn't care anyway.
Why expend the energy when I can save it for when I'm in the hot seat? It's like
100%.
Yeah, but going to Corey, because we troll this man a ton. It's a great experience. Everyone should do it. But the one thing I will always give
reviews
Corey
of dragging Corey last week too. So
yes. But the one thing I will say about Corey is he understands he's on a show, and he, despite putting himself in bad situations, once he's in those bad situations, he brings some good TV. Like,
oh yeah,
this was a Corey episode.
I'm starting to like think to myself, because at first, as I watched this whole season play out, I'm like, are these people literally stupid when they sit here and they're like, oh man, here I am in this position again. Like, Jenny's sitting there complaining about the numbers, and it's like, hey, idiot. Remember when Josh, once again, like, brought up the numbers to you and you were like, yeah, no, this makes sense. Like, Paulie does have the numbers. He would be the smart one to go after. And like Corey, same thing. It's like, he's complaining about the numbers, but he had Amanda and he had Tony that he just like threw in when they were like willing to shake things up, and now he doesn't have the numbers. But now I'm starting to think, are these people secretly geniuses that they just played this stupid on purpose so they have like something to complain about when things aren't going their way later in the season, and they're like able to be like, man, this is bullshit. Nobody has my back.
I mean, I think that's definitely going to be Corey's storyline for the rest of the season, which I'm all for. He hasn't mentioned his kids in episodes, so if we're just going to get spicy Corey that's going to be attacking people and going after them, hey, let that man go as long as possible. I like
spicy Corey. I like big fan of spicy Corey.
This brings up another point I was thinking about while I was waiting between the episode ending and this podcast starting. Didn't talk to Dan about this, or Paulie. In a different world, if Derek wasn't in the era that he was, where he gets his rings because mainly he's attached to the Kennys, the Johnnys, the Evans of the world. It's like most of his championships came off of their backs.
He was partners with Kenny in all three of his wins.
Yes. So let's say he started in the same time period as Corey. Are they not, in fact, the same player? They are beasts in elimination. They have great elimination records.
They're physically beasts, but stupid.
They can't do a puzzle to save their lives. If, heart to heart, if they are in a final, they could be a threat, but I don't think they would ever clinch the win themselves.
And when they're mad, they both get really loud. I'm seeing a lot of similarities
and they throw things. Except, like, Derek at least just only throws a life jacket, not the person themselves.
Or pasta.
Or he didn't throw the pasta, man. Tony threw the pasta.
His pasta was thrown.
Tony threw the pasta out the window. That was actually a wild thing to like experience in real time. One of the funniest things like I ever experience. I don't know what they showed of it like on the season, but it was like it was literally the funniest thing. Like Tony drunk as hell. Hey Corey, what do you got there? Pasta? You ain't gonna eat that pasta. Grabs it, just tosses it out the window.
I will say, Paulie, though, you're fighting someone over some thrown pasta, aren't you?
I'm fighting somebody over some thrown pasta, but you gotta understand, I had just gotten back into the house. I didn't really know what the hell was going on. I'm sitting in the window seat. Tony's sitting next to me, reaches across, comes across me, throws it out the window. I'm pretty sure he almost threw his microphone out the window too that night. And I saved that. And Corey at first was like not mad about it. Like he was kind of like laughing about it. And then out of nowhere, like I saw this like darkness take over his like whole aura, and I was like, oh man, he's probably gonna try and fight Tony like right now. And he did.
God damn. But
Munchies.
I just wanted to
I'll
put
get
that
you.
out there. Because I see a lot of similarities between these two. And I don't think people will want to admit it because they're too busy trying to etch this Derek is secretly the GOAT storyline. Which,
Well, that's a joke.
well, yeah.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, he's a
great.
great player.
He's great.
He'll go down as one of the legends, but I don't think he'll ever get that GOAT status.
No.
No,
If
I mean,
Jarrell's not getting the GOAT status with more wins, like, sorry, bud.
Yeah.
He's someone that you could put in the conversation as, is he, at least in the Mount Rushmore, if not all times up there with elimination specifically? Absolutely. Especially some of the ones that he's won where he's been punching above his weight class. But his totality of work on the challenge, he doesn't sniff the top 5. Love him to death, but he just doesn't.
And look, if he won tonight, which he shouldn't have been even close, Corey should have done better in this elimination. If Derek came out with the win there with one leg against an athlete, a competitor, a former football fighter, Gold Glove champion in his dreams, Corey Wharton, like, you can then label him as he is the all-time pound-for-pound elimination king. Like, because you should not be winning at that age with that injury against someone in his quote-unquote prime.
Yeah, I mean, I think they gave Derek a great send-off edit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, everybody knew the writing on the wall coming into this episode. I think we called it last week. Like, all right, so Derek and Rachel are going in.
Yeah, shot for shot.
And he had a great send-off, right? Like, you know, he hit some serious eliminations this season. I mean, he busted his knee up and still kept going. I think they allowed him to kind of get that, like, dying in the... I mean, I don't think that the Gladiator-sponsored episode couldn't have fallen on a better night with a better person going in, because the epitome of, like, what it means to be a gladiator, of, like, literally dying in the field of battle, like, I'd say Derek, in a poetic way, essentially did that tonight.
Oh, for sure. And you also have this idea of the gladiator of, like, the gladiator's the ultimate underdog also. It's like they're an underdog that can become that, like, Goliath champion. And Kara says it during the deliberation. And she's like, this sort of sucks because all 8 of us are underdogs within our own teams. Like, Era 1, you're just an underdog, period, because you guys are on death's door. Like, but the rest of us, Theo and Jenny, you guys are clearly on the bottom of Era 4. Like, I'm on the bottom of Era 2 because of Johnny and Laurel. Like, Derek's going to be not seen as a power player. Like, you have Corey, obviously. Avery, obviously. It's like, you're not in this alliance, which then spews into... Because we talk about the Vacation Alliance a lot. They're finally admitting it on the show. But I think there's a good highlight in this episode of how, one, a good job by Theo and Jenny of throwing a seed in there that causes, at least for an episode, for one round at the very minimum, some dysfunction within that tight group that's been controlling a game for seasons, for years. And I think it really highlighted how specifically Casey plays. Not Josh as much, but Casey is...
Well, Josh too, because Josh kind of plays that way, but he's just a little bit more vocal. But
Right.
But
Exactly.
yeah.
So let's talk on that. Let's talk on that. Dan, what are your thoughts there?
I just can't believe that it worked the way that it did. And maybe it's just because, Corey, God bless you, there's just not much going on upstairs. Because Devin, everyone else clocked it immediately, being like, well, I don't believe that at all. That's not what really happened. And he gets the confirmation from Michelle, but it's almost just too late because Corey can't help himself, because at this point, Josh, he sees it as the second betrayal. So he's just going to go nucular. And so it surprisingly
that vote
worked.
was totally genuine. Kylan said so.
It had legs that I didn't think it had. So shockingly surprised.
I do agree with Kylan though that if Josh and Casey did speak up,
Mm-hmm.
right, that then puts a certain type of pressure on Theo and Jenny. And then if they don't, do what the team wants, then that could be a riff in the team, and it could be a reason why, the team turns on them and, makes them be nominees every single time, right? However, I think, Casey and Josh just kind of sitting back and just letting the powers that be happen, right? Like that's classic Big Brother 101 right there. Like if you don't need to step in and vote and people are gung ho to make a decision and it comes down to like a majority vote versus a minority, you are going to 100% just sit back and let it take that shot. I mean, Casey's gameplay is definitely getting exposed this season, right? She stays very under the radar, and she barely wants to make the decisions. But you will see when it is for people that she feels, safe with, she will raise her hand in order to be nominated, right? So, like, she finally raises her hand to be nominated. She evaded being a target for half the season
For sure.
at this point, which is
But
I think
she was always going to be picked. She was always going to be picked by Corey. In this scenario, like he's pissed off at her, he's pissed off at Josh. If he could have picked both of them, he could have, or he should have, and Rachel should have picked Josh. It shouldn't have mattered who volunteered. I'd be like, cool, Kylan, go sit the fuck down. Josh, you're getting picked. Because I thought it was just bad gameplay volunteering if I was Casey. And that's why I was like, I believe she believes that they were going to get to Arrow 1 and be like, no, this isn't real. Like, we're just fucking with you. Yeah. This is actually going to be something else.
She was trying to call the bluff.
Yeah, they all did. Because she called it. Kylan, who's, like, the taint of the alliance at this point, is volunteers. Then you have Devin volunteering, and I think he's also calling that bluff, which then leads to Tori. Right. Because it was either going to be Tori or Nia, and I think at this point they're trying to just keep each other paired of Tori and Devin, and then Jordan and Nia. But like all of them are like calling that bluff, and I think it's going to clearly backfire on at least one of them next week.
It makes me laugh with Casey for the simple fact that I feel like however long she's there, they only got her one time in confessionals where she got a little spicy, and for whatever reason, Jenny dug underneath her skin. And that's the only time we've seen her all season, is just trashing her in confessionals. And I'd like to think they all come from the same day. Just, she was wound up over something, and they're like, no, we've got to replay that. Jenny. We have to replay that confessional from 3 weeks ago because we have nothing else we can put here.
You know why? I think Jenny's, she's getting into her turf. She's getting into Casey's turf. Like, Casey is supposed to be, I'm the one who doesn't really talk that much, but I just happen to have a bunch of relationships outside the show, so this helps. But, like, I come in, I don't talk much, I work out, I'm the athlete, I'm the one who you don't want to see in the sand, and suddenly Jenny's here, who's a little bit taller, a little bit more muscular, a little more built, has won a championship that maybe some people see as more earned than Casey's championship. Since she was sort of gifted CT for the second half of the final for sucking in the first half of the final. So there could be some animosity there as like a competitor being like, oh man.
There's that, or it also probably just sounds fucking annoying to hear an English accent complain about shit all the time. Like, I swear to God, dude, like when I would be in... I mean, it's probably going to sound bad, but like on War of the Worlds 2, dude, like when I would hear fucking Georgia just like, oh, it's just not really fair, is it? Like, he's just doing all this stuff. I would I would just be like, Georgia, shut the fuck up. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear your dumb fucking accent complain. Like, it could just be that. Like, if I was sitting there and Jenny, like, I'm getting annoyed watching it, just being like, well, you're clearly an idiot. like, because you see what the numbers are, but like you want to talk about it in a way that's like, it's just not really fair now, is it? It's just not this, it's just not that. It's like, it is exactly what it is every single season. A,
Yeah,
a group of people play
Well,
to get numbers majority, and then once they have it, they do whatever they want.
Well, and
right.
she
And
cried 2 weeks ago. What has she done since then? Has she
nothing.
just like, all right, got out of that. I can go back to doing my thing and not done anything to help improve her situation in the game?
Gotten in nobody's faces.
Nope.
You know what I
And
mean? Like,
yeah,
caused ruffled no feathers, just wine to Michelle.
yeah. And and I'm gonna make a comparison here to Kara because like in a different way. So like Kara, like you see her go into deliberation. She's like, I don't like the politic because to her, it's like, oh, that's being fake. Like, I know my relationship with Theo. I should be good just based off that and how we talked to each other before. I'm not going to politic that style of game. I'm going to let my game speak for itself. I'm going to let my presence speak for itself. But like Jenny doesn't go in that route. Like Jenny should be able to do that as well. Like have that mindset of like letting her body of work be her politics, but she doesn't even allow that to be how she maneuvers through the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kara says she doesn't politic, but she politics.
Right.
Like
But
you just she has a very subtle way of politicking.
Mhm.
Like it's a very subtle. I don't know how to put it, but like she knows how to make sense to people.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like that's it. Like that's her way of politicking is making sense to people. Not forcing people to see her point or like her outcome that she wants, but just kind of like presenting it in a way to have people put the pieces together for themselves. That's her subtle way of politicking. Uh Jenny, I don't think is capable
Well,
of
what we should
politicking at all.
she may not be, but what we should see is, and I'm hoping it happens. Who knows? Maybe it never does. But there should be that trio right there of Rachel, Kara, and Jenny. The three of them should be coming together and saying, we're all three strong, badass women. Let's band together. We don't mind going against the best. If we team up to take out, everyone else, that could be a force to be reckoned with. But I don't
Yeah,
know which one of the three would actually make the first steps in that
It would be
happening.
Rachel. Rachel
yeah, it
would be
would be
the first
Rachel
one.
for sure. And like at this point, they have the ability to always make sure that none of them are the targets at the same time,
Hmm.
Absolutely.
which would essentially make it that they never go against each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is hard when Rachel's always going to be a target. But
Yeah, at this point,
but it's
it's always
there,
Rachel.
and I think that's partially what also drove Rachel's decision towards wanting to go against Era 3 was I think everyone's cleared now, and it's easy from the outside from Era 1 to be like, Era 3's the threat, because sure, Era 4's winning some stuff, Era 3's winning some stuff, Era 2's winning some stuff, but Era 3 is like is the girl that everyone wants. That it's the popular girl that everyone wants to ask to prom, but they're people pleasers, so they let everyone like love bomb them. But
Yeah,
Era 1, and Rachel's like, I see that, I don't want that. I already
yeah,
faced Kara in elimination, and Kara beat me in essentially a luck of the
Star
draw
throwing.
knife throwing competition, like an equalizer
yeah,
comp, essentially.
yeah.
So what's gonna happen if it's not an equalizer comp? I might get my ass beat, even though like I think I can hold my own. Like that's something I don't want to test,
Yeah.
and Kara is someone that I can see as an actual ally and asset in the game moving
Mhm.
forward, as opposed to Avery.
Yeah. Speaking about testing, Avery got her ass beat.
Let's talk about it. Do you think they were told they couldn't bring their hands up?
I don't know what they were told. Like, are you allowed to block punches? Are you allowed to parry
Right,
punches? And everything because she was just getting whacked in the face. Like
hammered.
Rachel, like I think at one point, like Rachel knew that like she had popped all of the things on her head, and she was just throwing punches to her face just
for sure.
complete
Avery was
mental decimation.
Avery was Rocky, just taking all those shots to the face and not doing a damn thing about it. It was rough to see.
I mean,
and
it's sort of funny. It's sort of funny, though, because you go to the beginning of the episode, you go to the daily, and Avery's like, for the love of God, I just hope at the end of this, I just don't get hit in the face. Don't hit my moneymaker. Get to the back half of the episode.
Oh my God.
She takes about 50 punches to the head.
It was getting so bad they edited in the coin sound. Like, Rachel was just knocking the Mario coins out of her because it's what was happening. It was brutal.
Oh. But
yeah, that was
yeah. But at the same time, this was like the perfect elimination for this episode too, of just like that. You have these people that are heated with each other, specifically Corey and Derek, and they're like, you know what? Let's put some gloves on y'all. Let's put some gloves on you, put you in a tiny little circle, and let you punch the hell out of each other.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, like Derek held his own against Corey, but I'm really curious to know like what the limits and what the rules were. Like, the only way you were allowed to avoid punches was to try and kind of
duck and weave,
run around, and now. The round was 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
5-minute rounds.
Yeah, I mean that was a very small ring, which I think they probably did for the sake of a quicker person not being able to just kind of run around the ring and never make contact. Like I mean, imagine what that would look like. Blindfold boxing where you can't ever actually hit the person. Like I think we got what we wanted to see. The slow-mo shots of Avery just getting rocked. Derek and Corey just absolutely going at each other. I think overall it was a great elimination.
I think it was a fun one. I always loved.
I think it would have been better if they both had gloves on and no blindfolds, and like it was an actual sparring match of them trying to like just rock each other's shit.
And see, that's why I would have wanted Darrell there. Like actually have the boxer go against someone in boxing. Like come on, the story writes itself, folks. So let's remember this for when Darrell's on All-Star 6, and we need to have a good comp, and he's going down there. Scrap everything you're doing and be like, get. Four gloves, put them in the sand, like, guys, have fun.
It's probably going to be like Ace 2 that he just kicks the shit out of.
And you know what? That's okay. Ace was a plunger in All-Stars 1. He can be a punching dummy.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It'll be all right. I'm impressed that there wasn't, like, a knockout.
Yeah, I was concerned about
Avery. Rachel hit the chin a bunch of times on Avery, and I was like, I mean, props to Avery for not getting knocked out, but she was definitely taking some heat.
The only reason I'm not surprised she didn't get knocked out is just going back to her Real World season where her and Nia got into it, and she was throwing blows with Nia and standing toe-to-toe, so it wasn't that surprising, but I was expecting a little bit more. I wasn't expecting her to beat Rachel, because Rachel's an absolute animal, but I thought she'd do a little bit better, but that was also a decade ago, so a lot of stuff has changed since then.
I think when you go matters in this style comp, especially with your mindset, and her being the one who had to evade first and just getting her absolute shit rocked, made it hard for her to like come back around to okay, I can do this. And like you saw, like her, I think the first half of it, she was still like recovering from all those hits. And it wasn't until the back half where she started swiping.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
you just got rocked in the head a bunch of times, and now you got one of your senses taken away.
Mm-hmm. It's like if Derek went first. Like, we already know, like, in a world where Derek didn't go first, he still was going to lose. But in a world where he went first, and his knee is already, like, getting a little sensitive, his evading would have been even worse on the second round. So he would have just lost quicker, which is why I'm like, I wasn't understanding from Corey, like, try to do something to seven. You're quick. You're an athlete. You're a competitor. Like, do some cuts in the sand early on to try to get him to also do a quick turn. Even if he hits you, like, you have a chance of like blowing his knee out again, and then he's
Yeah.
hobbling the rest of the time, can't do shit. So
Yeah, I am curious what the rules were in terms of touching because it also like as they were trying to evade, like they weren't like
grabbing. Yeah.
really evading and pushing. But there were a couple times like when Derek got too close to Corey that he did shove him back. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like what was allowed and what wasn't allowed.
For sure. And we'll never
I'd be
know.
curious to know.
Yeah.
We'll never know unless they go live and talk about it.
Yeah,
Maybe,
Challenge
yeah.
Mania. Release the tapes. You're good at that, I've heard. So release these tapes too.
Yeah, get the tapes. We want to see. We want to see him.
So what do we think's going to happen next? Especially with the targets that we have. Any thoughts, predictions? Because I have one on Devin.
Mm-hmm.
My prediction on Devin is just his confessional at the end of the episode where he was just like, I'm volunteering myself. I'm dating a girl in here. I never do this. This is everything that you shouldn't do. And I just clocked that. I was like, that's setting up he goes next week, doesn't it?
Or at least soon.
I mean, I'm trying to think. The targets are Kyland, Devin, and Ryan. There's no other one there. I mean, if it is a matchup of him versus Kylan, that would be the only way that I would see it turning out that way. I feel like anybody who's a target on the female side,
Oh man.
whoever goes in, I think is losing to Rachel.
Well, we're getting, no matter who it is, I feel like we're getting a big time matchup because you think we have Rachel, we have Laurel, Tori, and Casey. So no matter what, we're seeing a big time player on the female side go home.
I think
Yes.
I'm gonna make my predictions here. I think something's gonna happen that TJ's gonna essentially announce that like because there's only one person left, that Rachel's essentially safe. Until like at least for this round.
Mm-hmm.
I think Era 2 is going to win. And by default, we see an Era 3 versus Era 4 fully Vacation / Kyland matchup. And we lose one of Tori and Casey early in a season, which would be interesting.
That would be interesting. I mean, that would mean that Era 2 or Era 1 would pull out the win.
Oh, imagine a Rachel win all by herself. It looks like it's like a hanging comp also.
Well, but the thing is, like, imagine a Rachel solo win, which would be amazing. But then I don't think we're getting that matchup of Devin and Tori versus Kyland and Casey unless Era 3 comes in last place.
Mm-hmm.
Because she would never willingly vote Tori into an elimination.
That's true.
Interesting. Oh, but yeah, it's a bunch of people that she's done Rachel fitness workouts with.
100%.
But she's a competitor. She's a competitor at the end of the day, and I think she will still have some sense of ties to some of the Era 2 people, which is why I think ultimately we see an Era 3, Era 4 matchup.
Well, if she was able to pull it off, I think she'd save Era 2 simply based off of Ryan, though. I think she's known Ryan longer, closer with Ryan than she is with anyone on 3 or 4.
That is true.
And it could be the same way that if Era 2 somehow wins, Ryan could be the one saying, I don't necessarily have the relationships with 3 or 4, Laurel, like I'm not putting Rachel in. So either we're going down or 3 and 4 are going against each other. I think those are the only two ways that, well, obviously it would have to be one of those two ways to see that happen.
Yeah. Oh, tricky. Yeah.
But that's what I love.
Yeah. I mean, I'm intrigued to see. I want the game to get a little spicy. I think we're on the verge of like some spiciness.
Well, especially, could you imagine what happens if we lose 1 or 2 people from the Vacation Alliance? that suddenly makes them try to scramble a little bit to see who else can they pull in, which then also leads the side open for the other people. Unfortunately, someone like Kyland, I don't think would do it, but you leave it to, the Corys, the Nehemiahs, Nayas. Maybe
Yeah,
something
Kylan
could
would
happen.
not do it. I don't think so. So, I mean, if that is the case, I mean, era three is basically down. Devin, Corey, and Jordan are the only men.
Mm-hmm. And they're down to what? Just
They're down to
Naya
five.
and
It's
Tori.
Corey and
it's Naya
Naya.
and Tori. Yeah.
Yeah. Era three somehow has like all of their men.
7 people.
Yeah, Era 4 still has essentially all their men minus. Well, they still have 3 guys. Era 2 has
No,
all
they
4 of
they
their
they have
guys.
four. They have four guys. Era two has Bananas, Nehemiah, Derek, and Ryan, and then they just have Aviv. They have
Laurel
Aviv, Kara,
and
and Laurel. So they have 7 people.
Era
Kind of
2's
crazy.
low key in a great spot,
Yeah,
despite
low
like
key,
how dysfunctional they are.
100%. Like they have avoided eliminations for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't really needed to win, but they have won. Um, and then you have, I mean, Era 4 is down to Josh Kyland and Theo. And then on the female side, you got Jenny, Casey, Michelle, and Olivia.
Yeah,
Which
So
there's
two
still
teams got 7, one team has 5, one team has 1.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see now if some of these dailies having more numbers is gonna be more of a hindrance rather than a benefit. But that's something we'll find out as soon as next week.
Yep.
I made the prediction last week. Like this next week, it has to be the last time that they're in eras, right? I don't
It has
see
to
how you
be.
keep
Hey, we
going
say it
multiple
enough
challenge
times,
of
it will
Rachel by
become
himself.
true.
Eventually, yeah.
There,
One of these
there,
weeks I'll
there's
be
no
right.
way you stay in errors after this week. I'm sorry, but like, Rachel's great, but like, are you really going to risk an entire era getting wiped out?
You know,
By keeping errors longer?
there is a twist that will have been just great. It's not going to happen where TJ reveals that like Rachel, you're the last person left from Era 1.
Choose to join.
Congratulations. You have punched your ticket to the final. And the twist is you have to be the last person remaining of your era in order to go to the final. Like,
That'd be hilarious. The
and
last,
then
the
you just
last.
see everyone just shit themselves. Just be like, oh, wait. What?
Oh wait, now I got to turn against my own team. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been a twist, but hey,
Give me a
Hey,
producer
think-
hat, folks.
Well, I
baby
think
steps.
that's also why we need to go away from the eras, simply because get rid of the targets. I don't want to make it where it has to be one of these 8 people or now 7 people going home every week. Put it all performance based as individuals. Losers go into elimination, winners pick who's going in against them, and make sure that you can't have the alliances planned that they're on some type of rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Make them go in. The other
Yep.
thing I really wanted to see, and it makes such a great TV moment, is they're now going and telling the people who are going in. But TJ doesn't tell them until the elimination. Like, how great of a moment would have been had they gotten there and said, well, actually, Kara and Derek, you're going down instead. And
Would
just
have been a great
completely
moment.
blindside them.
Nobody thinks in terms of good TV moments now.
Nah, we have to save our backs, Like, if I tell you in advance, you can't be mad at me. But if you're mad at me, you'll be over it because you won your
Come on, make
elimination.
some
You're
good TV
happy
moments.
now.
I want to see people yelling at the elimination ground again.
Yeah, Corey, I want Corey to continue yelling after you got the win. Like, just like instantly be like, yo, Derek, awesome, man, thank you. Fuck you, Josh. Fuck you. Like, fuck you,
Yep.
Vacation Life. Like, I just wanted to
Yep.
see him, like, just go off some more. Because him yelling at Josh and just making Josh completely expose himself yet again was
Oh yeah,
amazing.
top tier. Top
Which,
tier.
kudos to you, Theo and Jenny, for pulling off a bullshit meeting and actually getting someone to get worked up over it.
I don't really see how the Vacation Alliance could operate moving forward on this show with how much it's been exposed. how they play the game.
If they continue to succeed based off solely the Vacation Alliance moving forward, then it's just a shame on the rest of the people there that aren't willing to be like, hey, yeah, let's keep shaking this up, force them to change their game, force them to adapt.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Well, the thing that's, unfortunate of why maybe it doesn't show up is because people like Bananas, like Jordan, they never are said they're in the alliance. They're the ones that are benefiting from it the most. They're the ones that get the wins. Even someone like CT. CT hasn't been in the Vacation Alliance. He won both seasons that he was there, while it's kind of been like a thing.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's why they're smart players, they lean on it without actually being a part of it.
And that's why some of them are now being revealed for Telemundo shows.
Color me shocked.
What can I say?
Congratulations. An international competition show. They really got the best of the best from the U.S.
I just hope that Josh is there with Alan or whatever his name was, whose spot he took in World of Worlds 1.
That would be hilarious.
They're both there.
Man. Good for him. A tie raises all boats. So hopefully he performs well and it gives the challenge a continued good name. Here's to that.
Very true. Very true.
But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us. Any final thoughts?
My final thought is I hope my camera's working better next week.
Don't we all?
We'll get it figured out.
Yeah, we'll have it all figured out by next week. Any final thoughts, Paulie?
I'm hoping to see a little bit more, boil between the Devin Michelle Bananas pot stir that happened.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that we get to see that boil over just a bit.
We need some type of drama because we've gotten the hookups. We've gotten a few things that we've been asking for, but we haven't necessarily gotten those drama moments. And if it's not coming from someone like a Bananas, I just don't know who it's going to come from outside of Corey shouting matches, which we love and appreciate, but we need something that's going to be a bigger, long story, plot of the season rather than a few commercial breaks.
Yeah, well, man. I think that I don't know. I don't think from a drama standpoint we're getting anything. I mean, we've already beaten the dead horse with what Corey talks about.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, either go to war or shut up.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
I still think everybody's too nice because, if I'm going down into my was this Corey's third elimination?
I think it was the second time he was in. It was this and the one
Second?
against Brad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Brad. Yeah, Brad and Derek.
Yeah, all I'm saying is if this is my second elimination going in, I think it could have been a little bit more explosive.
Yeah, I need some classic Wes, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you, and keep it moving.
100%.
Something would have been great there, but
yeah,
I think Corey would have had to pre-script that out, or someone would have had to tell him to do that, and just wasn't in the budget.
What you don't know is I wrote it down on behind the pictures of his kids, so that when he turns the picture over, he can memorize his lines.
Oh, Corey!
Oh man, don't give him too many lines, man.
I only give him the basics. Here.
Just give him the basics.
We'll teach him. He can come back for a second course if he continues to have a good showing. To be determined.
He'll get there. He'll get there.
One day.
He's a dad now. He can't go crazy anymore.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
Dad, take us home.
But yeah, that's going to do it for us. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the bell. That way you get notified every time our podcasts drop. We have a ton going on at the Reality After Show Network. There's tons of Survivor coverage. You have Johnny, Matt, and Wayne doing the live reaction show. Kelly Wentworth has her new one, as well as tons of other podcasts that drop weekly that I can't keep up with. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get those at. Make sure you like, review, give us 5 stars, give the Challenge Pod a little shout out there. And as always, the best way to support the podcast is to become a patron. You can do that at realitypatron.com. Until that's Alex, Paulie, I'm Dan, and we will see y'all next week.